What up? So I want to, I have 21 videos left, and I want to make each one of these really count. And I know that like I've done a lot of mess, like working through stuff, what I'm going through, and how I get through it. Going through gratitudes, all of that stuff. But I want to take the time to, the last time I did one on my couch, because I'm usually doing this in my car. Um, it was at the beginning, and I think I was like maybe like 3 or 4 months in, and I'm sitting at a year and 7 months basically in a couple days, no fronts, right? But I wanted to, I'm in a good headspace right now. And if anybody's been watching this over the last couple of weeks, maybe even a couple of months, you've seen me go through these ups and downs and how I've worked through it and all of that. And I read the most amazing thing when I got home. I was like deep in prayer, praying for somebody else, praying that like, hey, if I, if, if sometimes if I want my way and it's going to get in the way of anybody's development, anybody's recovery, um, then, like, um, then I would pray that I know what the right thing would be to do. And so I did a lot of prayer over that, and then I just read the most amazing thing. And so today was a good day in terms of you know being in a better headspace and understanding patience. Like that's been the theme for the last couple of weeks for me, has been patience and trust and understanding, and like not looking at anything other than like, hey, it's about really working this thing the way that they say, and I'm coming out, like, the goal here is 500 videos, and the last video is going to be my 2 year where I close it off. Like I wanted this to be a 1 year series and it turned into a 2 year. And I told myself, well, you know what? Here's the thing. I want to get back to where I was, because I never thought in a million years I'd get back to that 2 year marker. I thought for the longest time that, oh, okay, maybe recovery isn't the thing. Maybe I got to try something else like horses or some fucking bullshit. And I didn't sway. I still stuck to making at least one meeting and all of that. And then eventually I went back into treatment, and eventually I really leaned on God, looked up and just said, hey, I need you, and I don't have anything left, and surrendered. And because of that, like, I was thinking about it today, that I remember being in there and everything just kind of like a spiritual way, everything just like connecting. I heard my story. I was in there full recovery. I was taking it 100% serious, doing all the packets, all the things that you're supposed to do in there. And I got, like I was just preaching the message, preaching recovery, realizing that like there are some people that I was in there with that had never even experienced it. And I could share that, hey, I had some time, I had the sponsees, I had all of this, and I still, and one of the main things for me was that I didn't share when I wanted to get loaded. I didn't share any of that stuff. I just shared about, oh, I've got this much time, or I've got this tag, or, I've worked this step. And for me, it's super important that anytime I have that thought, and it's happened twice for me, where I had the thought, like 5 months in, and then about 9 months in, maybe a year in, where the thought of drinking crossed my mind. And I went through this situation, and if you go back far enough, you'll see that I was like really going through it, and the idea of having a drink to just not feel like it anymore really crossed my mind. So I reached out to somebody, and then I made either a Zoom meeting, or I made a meeting, and I shared, hey, I felt like doing this. And it's normal for a person like me who suffers from this disease to have that thought. I knew, like, I know that the thought will cross my mind again, but I know what to do. And because I did that, like, I was able to, you know, dead it. And I don't know about deading it, but I was able to like take away its power. And I didn't just hide it because that's what I did last time. And ultimately, for like a year, I hid it, and I just kept thinking about it all the time. And so I think about this situation that, in terms of like how I've been feeling lately and just trusting, writing about it, trusting. And today was a good day and it ended really well. And I felt like, I'm not going to just like, I'm going to do this. I've got a couple more months and then I'll have 2 years. So I'm going to make these last couple of videos really count and really be about the message and really be about like, hey man, like I have climbed out of fucking hell. And I still sometimes bring hell into my head. I still sometimes bring it to the house, bring it to my bed. And trusting in God means that like I know that He's working in me. Um, it's one of the main reasons that I memorized Psalms 23, because I felt like I identify with that psalm the most. That's the answer to my problems on top of my recovery. Because if it's just that first one where, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. If I just follow that for the rest of my life, and I do all the things I'm supposed to do, if I just follow that, it will guide me. And the rest of it, um, the rest of that psalm is kind of like for me a map to like um, to being at peace with myself, because we're going to go through these struggles and each struggle is going to be like our own Goliath, and we have all of these different Goliaths. And the reason I bring his name up is because of who wrote that psalm. We have all of these different Goliaths in our lives. It can be a person, it can be a relationship, it can be food, it can be TV, it can be anything I want to do to distract myself from feeling the way I'm feeling. And, I've come to terms with like when I'm feeling a certain way, there's nothing in the literature, there's nothing I'm going to read. There's no video I'm going to watch. There's no motivational video I'm going to do. There's no gym time I'm going to get where I'm going to actually be able to not feel it. I'm going to have to feel it, and I'm going to have to find gratitude. And that practice in itself relieves me. And and sometimes it doesn't feel like it's relieving me, but I know that that's how God works. He is teaching me in areas of my life that, hey, here's an area of your life where it's not quite like it's you lack it. Trust is an area that I lack, especially if it's like over a person or mainly people, like I don't struggle too much with things like I used to, but people for sure. And so being able to lean on the meetings, being able to lean on God really helps me sit on my hands and not. Um, I know how I would have been um, in this season of my life if I was at the beginning of the, years ago, or even like a year ago, or even like, 9 months ago, let alone a year and a half ago, and so I am grateful for how I am today. I am grateful for tonight. And and I just felt like, I'm going to do the rest of these in my car, and I'm sitting here in a good headspace, and I've got this an enormous amount of like gratitude. So, why not just make one of these 21 um, kind of like where it started? And so, the journey really, when you do all the things like, stay clean and do the meetings, and, when I, not you, but when I do those things, um, in the time, it doesn't feel like it's working, but over time, it does. And so, for anybody who does come upon this and they're just like sitting here, like, what am I going to do? How did I get back here? Um, God, like sometimes I get in my head and I've heard this, so I'm going to share this. I didn't make this up. But sometimes we get to this point where we're so worried that if we go to our higher power or we go to God, we're thinking they're going to be like, again, you're dealing with this again. But that's not the case. God, for me, is the God where He's like, again, come to me again. I'm glad you're coming back to me with this. Let's do this. Um, and I don't, and that's the key to know that like we these things that I go through, I'm meant to go through. And if as long as I don't get into this place of indifference where I'm like, okay, I don't want to feel this anymore, so I'm just going to feel indifferent, or I don't want to feel this anymore, so I'm just going to be angry, or I don't want to feel this anymore, so I'm going to distract myself or be like, fuck it, or say it is what it is, and just kind of, I can't. I have to do it a different way, and I've learned how to do it a little bit differently. And because of that, um, and that trust, they'll work out. And you know, I feel a sense of relief because of like the effort of like sitting on my hands and not like doing a bunch of this, and not being like, what's wrong with me, or what did I do, or you know, um, any of that, and I'm not going to go into detail because I don't believe that I need to go into a big detail. Like I think people that are watching this, or anybody who would watch this, they understand what I'm saying. So yeah, yeah, hard work pays off. And you know I'm just really grateful that I'm almost at 2 years. I was able to do some things in these 2 years that I never thought I could do. Like I was told my whole life, get a hobby. And I'm like, fucking hobby? I work, I take care of kids, like what the fuck? I don't have a hobby. And then like I picked up some things and I showed myself that like I'm not too old. And I showed myself that like I can go out there and I can do things and I can still be a parent, and you know, people will say, hey man, like you do too much of this or you do too much of that. You're not focusing on this. No, I'm discovering myself so I can be a better version of whatever it's going to be. Like there's a lot of stuff that I'm lacking. There's a lot of stuff that I need to work on. But for the most part, I'm also discovering that like I'm not, I'm more than I thought I would be, and more will be revealed. Hopefully I do a video, the last one at the top of Mailbox Peak, where I do a video on that and I say I got 2 years and I put my old 2 year tag in that fucking mailbox. And a letter, 2 letters really. So I won't share what those 2 letters are, but I have 2 letters that I'm writing, and they're going to go into that mailbox, including my 2 year tag that I tried to chuck out my window and I couldn't find. So if you are coming back to a place where you're like, man, I had this, or you're just starting, just know that like even if we get clean, we're still going to deal with some shit that is going to be hard. But if we don't get loaded and we sit with it, we really sit with it, and we look up and we're like, I know I'm supposed to go through this. I know I'm supposed to be feeling this. You know, and it's part of growing. I know I can be a better person for whoever I'm going to help when I can fight through that. And so just know that if you're sitting in a place where you're confused and you're not sure, um, we don't get to know. We don't get that crystal ball. Because the bottom line is if I got a vision of what it's going to look like on the other side of the mountain, then I'm going to fuck up the trek getting there, right? I'm going to, like, if I knew what it would take to get there, like, if I could just, well, not what it would take, if I knew what it looked like, and then I was zoomed back over to here, I'll either fast forward too hard or I'll do all these things too much, and I won't do it the way it's supposed to be done, which is exactly the way it's going to be set out. So I have to sit in all that stuff. So you have what it takes. You got this. Wherever you are, I don't care if you got 1 day clean. I don't care if you're not clean. I don't care if you had years clean and now you're coming back. You can get back to that place, but it's a slow burn. It's a slow grind. No matter how fast you think a day goes, it's 24 hours and it's, 60 minutes in an hour and it's 60 seconds in a minute. And that shit doesn't go any faster or any slower. It might feel like it, but that's exactly how fast it goes. And so, just know that. So it's going to take that time to get to the next step. And I felt like this was one of those things that I should share of the 21 that's left. And so it's kind of a countdown, right? Countdown to not being on the internet anymore, not fucking sharing this stuff anymore, because I've made that commitment and I'm going to stick to it. So, all right, I'm out. I think it's 21. I'll have to go back and look, but I think it's either 21 or 22, something like that. I've got 470 something on there, and I thought it was 479. Either way, when that number says 500 on my count, I'm done. So, peace, and have a good evening.